later on that summer, in July, I went with the Dry Riders because I was a prospect in a motorcycle club at that time. I went with the Dry Riders to Wyoming, to Cody, Wyoming, and hands down, that was the most amazing trip I had ever taken on my motorcycle ever. Hands down, ever, 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 ever. And if I can ever go back there on my motorcycle, I will in a heartbeat. I had such a great time with them people. I had such an awesome experience out there. But other than that one guy, I had an awesome time out there. The Dry Riders and I rode around. That was another. I put on another 3,500 miles. I mean, I put on 3,500 miles round trip getting out there and back. I rode out there with this guy named Tom. I led us out there, and then I led us back. We went on our trip out to Cody, Wyoming. We went through Wallace, South Dakota, and then up, and then we met into Cody. And then on the way back, we went through North Dakota, stayed in Dickinson, Bunka Biker, Murray, Mr. Murray. We stayed at Mr. Murray's house. And then we went from there all the way down through Minnesota and then back home. So it was like a big loop we did. And it was six days. And it was about 3,400 miles. It was quite the journey. And that year, 2024, 25, it was 2025. It was last year I did that. It was last year. That last year I had 14.6 thousand miles on my motorcycle. I did a bunch of trips out with the Dry Riders out to Wisconsin. And then on my way to Texas, we did the Texas trip, which was like 1,500 miles. I did the 3,500 mile trip to there. We did a bunch of times. We went out to Wisconsin. I went to northern Minnesota. I went to Ely. I went to Grand Rapids. And we went to Wisconsin a bunch too. I mean, that last year was such a phenomenal year in light of everything that was going on in my life. That was an awesome time because I remember calling Marissa from my wife at the time. I called her while I was out in Wyoming, and I was like, this is just unreal out here. Like, I can't believe how beautiful it is, the mountains and everything like that. And that was when me and Marissa basically were that's basically when I found out she was gonna give me a divorce. So like, I had to ride back the last couple days. I was hurting for certain because I knew what I was coming home to. I knew that I was coming home to just problems. And then I had to move into the basement. That when I got back from Cody, Wyoming on that trip, I had to move into the basement. And partly why, because Marissa was mad that I took all this time off to go do these motorcycle trips, and I can see why. I was going through a lot of emotional ups and downs and instability last year because that year prior I had worked for a biohazard cleanup company called SteriClean here in the Metro, in the North Metro. There's a franchise here. And I got really close with the owner through the Harley Owners Group, and I rode around with them guys for a couple of years too. And I got really close to the guy who owned that company, and he said, "Hey, do you want to come make some real good money?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to. That sounds really great." And he's like, "All right, well, show up here, and I'll put you to work." And when I showed up there, the wage that he told me I'd start at wasn't the actual wage; it was about half of that. So I ended up making like $21 an hour doing hoarding cleanup, which was really difficult work. But then if you got to clean up a biohazard like a dead body, an unintended death, a homicide, suicide, anything like that, your pay shot up to 50. But it was really, really stressful work. There was no decompression. There was no debriefing. After you would go clean up a dead body, and you would spend the day doing that, and you would go on a weekend trip out of town and go clean up a suicide. There was no debriefing. There was no like training. There was no therapy. And so I started to really, in the 2024 season, the year of 2024, I was doing a lot of that. It really caught up with me. I started really feeling depressed and anxious and cleaning up dead bodies and seeing people get their kids taken away because they can't clean their house. And I'll share you with this one last thing, and then I'll let you go. There was this mom who owned a townhome and we had been there once before and cleaned it because she was a really bad hoarder. And if you ever been in a hoarder's house, you would know. But it's just like the show. In fact, the show on A&E, Hoarders, the company that comes in and does the cleaning, that comes in the hazmat suits and the masks and all that, that's SteriClean. Like, that's us. I shot a commercial with them with SteriClean for A&E, and was a film crew came. I'll post some pictures. A film crew came and filmed us and we gave little bios, and they filmed us while we worked, and it was pretty crazy. So technically, I was on A&E. I was on the show Hoarders. I was going through it. I started to get depressed. I didn't know how to deal with this, and so eventually I quit. I got super frustrated. So one last time I came back, I put my 2 weeks in, and I was gone. I quit, and I know I still have bad blood with them because Brian, the guy who owns SteriClean, won't talk to me anymore because I quit. So it's like, it's conditional. People are conditional, right? There is no unconditional friendships out there. Very rare. It's always conditional. It's always, well, if I'll like you if you work for me and you help me, but if you don't work for me and you quit and you take care of your mental health, I'm never going to talk to you again. And that's what happened. I started going through EMDR therapy. I started to try to work through some of the stuff that I was going through to try to become a better person, because I didn't want this to stick to me. I didn't want the suicides, the cleaning up dead people, seeing brains. And okay, so this lady we went and did this cleanup for this lady, and like 6 months to 8 months later, we had to come back and do it again. And this time the county or the state or whoever was involved and said that you have 4 hours to get this house as clean as you can, and if you can't get it clean, she's gonna lose her 2 boys. And so we worked our hardest. We tried so hard to get that place livable again, and we found out that she did lose her kids. So that's another aspect that really, really hurt me, is that some of these places that we were going in and cleaning were so bad, and there was kids living there, and I would just feel so bad leaving there knowing that these kids are living in these sort of situations where there's feces all over, there's mice, there's insects, there's pee in the carpet, the flooring is bad, there's sewer in the basement, the fridge is totally filled with food and it's been off for 2 years. These poor kids, man. That's why I quit SteriClean, because it was getting to be a lot. And there was no extra pay. Like, if you cleaned up a dead body, yeah, you made $50 an hour, but there was no benefit. Like, you get $21 an hour to go clean up and go through that sort of emotional turmoil. It just wasn't worth it to me. And Brian originally told me, he's like, hey, you want to make $50 an hour? I said, dude, like, that's $50 an hour is like my number. That's my dream number. If I could make $50 an hour and do stuff, count me in. What do I got to do? He's like, well, eventually, every once in a while you got to do this and do that and do this and that. I'm like, all right, sweet. So he tells me to show up, and then I'm only getting paid $21 an hour, $50 when you clean up a dead body, which is like once a month for 2 hours, 3 hours. So it's like, I don't know. It wasn't equating to me as an adult with 2 kids, a lot of bills to pay, and that sort of thing. That's more of like a kid's job, and that's who they hired. They hired either really old people or really young people, because those are the people that can work that job. Not me. I just couldn't do it. Not that I didn't want to do it. I was like, nah, it ain't worth it. If I was making $50 an hour all the time, I would have done it, but it ain't worth it. That's my story. That's story time with Lefty today. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Looks like there's something going on. Oh, ambulance. Hope everybody's okay. Well, that's that, you guys. I'm going to go get the mail, go in, shower, and I am going to let you go edit this and get it posted so y'all can see and hear a little bit about what's going on with me. I think I'll share more stories like this in the future. I think I like it. It's a little bit of therapy for me, and it shows you guys a little bit of what I've been through in this life. Even in the last couple of years, I've been crazy. See you guys.